Hello everybody, welcome along to this Year 10 Term 3 Lesson 14 where we are continuing to be introduced to Component 3, which we by now know is our scripted extract, which is going to be worth 20% of our final grade. There is no written work that accompanies this extract or this component, and so far we've been looking at a monologue, but for your information and just for your own reference, it could be done as a duologue, which is two people, or it could be done as a small group performance. But just because of the circumstances that we're in, we're going to continue to look at Leah's monologue from DNA today. So, as with the previous lesson, we're going to demonstrate a knowledge and understanding of DNA by Dennis Kelly. We're going to identify a character's motivation in given circumstances. I'm going to ask you to review that. And then we're going to focus today on vocal skills. And your main task is going to be able to demonstrate a character's motivation, the circumstances of a scene, the reflections of that character's personality through experimenting and then applying accurate vocal skills which work with a specific section. So, the resources that you are going to need for today are as follows. You're going to need your drama book or some notepaper and a pen. You're going to need a copy of the PowerPoint that I sent to you with today's resources. You're going to need that specifically for the extract that we are going to be reviewing, and you're going to need something to record yourself with, and I'll talk to you a little bit more about that as we go through the lessons. That's not something that we need to panic about massively. It's a really small amount. I'm actually not going to ask you to video yourself. It's going to be an audio recording, so fear not, we'll speak about that as we go through. So pause the video now, go and get the things that you need, and then come back when you are ready. Excellent. So, without looking at your notes from last lesson, what are the circumstances of the scene that I have sent you? What is Leah's motivation in that scene? And can you think of 5 different adjectives that might describe Leah in this scene? I'm going to ask you to pause the video now. I'm going to ask you to spend no longer than 5 minutes doing it. Again, I'm going to remind you, please don't look at your notes from last lesson and come back when you have got these things just really quickly noted down. 5 minutes is a maximum. I would be aiming for much nearer to 3 minutes, but 5 minutes is the maximum time that I want you to spend on this. So, what are the circumstances of the scene? Leah is panicked because they have injured a boy called Adam. At this point, I'm not convinced that they know that Adam is dead. Or that they believe Adam is dead. So we're probably not going to reference that. But they do know that they've injured him. They know that they're probably going to get into some kind of trouble, and they're trying to think of a way to get out of it. She's babbling. Her thoughts are sporadic, possibly showing the audience her nerves at that moment. They're in a field. That is a circumstance. It's something that we can't change about the scene. It tells us that she's in a field, and it is. And actually, maybe another circumstance is that she is sitting or standing with Phil. So, what is Leah's motivation in the scene? She's trying to get Phil's attention. She is seeking reassurance from her friend, and she's trying to gain that reassurance from him. And again, we spoke a little bit in our last session about that. That's probably not happening from Phil. She's probably not getting that reassurance that she craves. And then, can you think of 5 different adjectives that might describe Leah in this scene? Up at needy. Okay, she needs Phil's attention. She's desperate, she's anxious, she's sporadic, her thoughts are all over the place, but she's mainly very, very talkative. Now, yours might be different to that. Again, there's no real right or wrong answer. That's down to interpretation, but those are some of the things that I came up with. So, very, 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 very quickly, I want you to spend 30 seconds writing down as many vocal skills that you can think of. Okay, so very, very quickly, I'm not going to put a pause moment in. You can pause the video if you need to, but just write down the things that you need. So as I say, pause the video if you want to spend 30 seconds doing that. Pause it now. And here are some of the things that I came up with. So I put pitch, I put pause, I put pace, I put volume, I put inflection on the screen, but inflection is what I meant. And if you're unsure what inflection means, inflection is where we just slightly raise the pitch of our voice at the end of a word, or of a sentence, and that's really just a questioning thing. So it might be, "You don't mean that, do you?" So you've got that kind of inflection which questions it. The tone of voice we put in there, and again, you could have put other things down, but there's just a couple of examples that we have come up with. Now, I'm going to explain one of the tasks, and we're going to do 2 tasks really in today's lesson, and this is going to be one of them. I'm going to ask you to do the following. I'd like you to experiment reading through the extract, which is that 3-page extract from Leah's monologue, using 4 different types of vocal skills. I want you to do one high-pitched all the way through. I want you to make it as high-pitched as you can, okay? The pitch is what we're going to be focusing on. So you're going to be reading through that really small section, through that 3-page section, and you're going to be trying to do as much of it as you can in this high-pitched voice, okay? Then I want you to have a go at reading it in a low pitch. Then a fast pace, so reading it as fast as you can, and then reading it as slow as you can. Now, it is not slow motion. You don't read it like that, but you just kind of go slow pace. Everything is read very slowly. So I'm not reading it in slow motion. I'm not making it exaggerated. I'm just reading it in that slow pace. Now, after you have done that, each time, I want you to just do a really small reflection. So let me give you an example. You are about to read through your monologue, or Leah's monologue, using a high-pitched voice. When you have read through that, I want you to write down a plus. What do you think was really effective about the high pitch? So it might be that your plus is, it was really good in showing her panic. What was the minus? The minus might be, it wasn't appropriate for certain moments of the scene, okay? There are moments where she's calm, and actually it wasn't appropriate for showing that calmness. And what did you find interesting about using that high pitch? Okay, so what was an interesting moment? And that actually could be, a moment within the text that the high pitched worked for. So it might be that you pick out a small quote and you say, oh, actually, something that was really interesting is that I when I've read through it before, I wouldn't have considered using a high pitch for this moment, but I did, and it worked really well. So for each of the 4 different experimental vocal techniques or the vocal skills that you're going to use, I want you after each one to write down a plus, a minus, or an interesting. So try it in high pitch, do a plus, minus, interesting. Do it in a low pitch, write down a plus, minus, interesting. Do it in a fast pace, write down a plus, minus, interesting, and then in a slow pace, plus, minus, interesting. Now, it only has to be a sentence for each. You will need to do it, as I say, 4 times for each of the different vocal skills and the vocal types that you are using. But again, it is a really small reflection. Now, I put in the green box at the bottom of the screen this. You're welcome to complete this task with a friend. Okay, this could be somebody in your class. It could be somebody that's not in this class. It could be somebody that you live with, or if you would rather, you're more than welcome to complete it by yourself. For me, I'll find it really awkward to sit in my bedroom or somewhere at home reading something by myself. So it might be that you want to FaceTime or video chat with somebody in the class who's also going to be doing this task. That would be my recommendation to you. This could be a collaborative task, as I say. And actually, a really good thing about collaborating on this is that you could do it in your high pitch, and actually your friend could do the evaluation, the reflection for you. So doing this with somebody is likely to be much more beneficial for you than doing it by yourself. However, if you would rather do it by yourself, if you found it quite embarrassing to video chat your friend and read through your monologues together, if that's not something that you're comfortable with, then do it by yourself, read it through it by yourself, and then do a self-reflection. That's absolutely fine. So I'm going to just really quickly recap. You're going to go through it. You're going to go through the extract 4 different times. Once in a high pitch, once in a low pitch, once in a fast pace, once in a slow pace. After each of the different times that you experiment with the vocal skills, you are going to do a PMI, a plus minus interesting, for a high pitch, then for a low pitch, then for a fast pace, and then for a slow pace. You need to make sure that you're doing a plus minus interesting for each one, not just one of them. And then, as I say, you might want to consider doing this with a family member or somebody in your class, or if you would rather, do it by yourself. So I'm going to ask you to spend no longer than 10 minutes doing this task. And when you have completed that, come back to the video and we'll move on to the final task for today's session. And then finally, this is what I'm going to ask you to do for today's session. You'll notice that there is an extract on the left-hand side of the screen. This is page 12. It's the final part of Leah's monologue. And this is the bit that I just want you to focus on when you are recording your monologue or your section of Leah's monologue. And the task is this. I'd like you to record yourself performing this section of the monologue. This doesn't have to be a video, but can be a sound file. Now, if you'd rather do it as a video, that's absolutely fine. If you would rather do it as a sound file, that is absolutely fine. I have no preference in how this is done. If you would like to have the camera filmed on you as you are reading it, that's fine. I'm not looking at physical skills, so it's not important that we do that, but that's absolutely fine. If you want to video yourself or use a video recording software on your phone, then that's absolutely fine. But you don't have to have it on you if that's the way that you want to. Now, if you are going to film yourself and you are going to have a video file, so something that's not a sound file, you need to make sure a couple of things. You need to make sure that you are appropriately dressed. You need to make sure that you're in an appropriate location. So if you're thinking about that, an appropriate dress would be something that you would be wearing on a non-school uniform day. Okay, so that's something that you would be wearing. And in an appropriate location, that would be somewhere like your living room or in your garden. A garden is a really good place to do it. But that's what we need to consider. Now, if you're worried about that or you don't really understand what an appropriate dress or an appropriate location is, it's safe to do it as a sound file. Okay, so that is where we stand. Now, you must do this. You must use an example in this small extract of you using fast and slow pace that is noticeable for me to hear or Mrs. Broughton to hear in the recording. Okay? So it might be that you go, "You're not scared." Nothing scares. There, I've said it. So you might do that. So you've got that really fast-paced moment, you've got that slow-paced moment. Okay? And it's really easy for us to audibly hear. Then what I would like you to do is this. I'd like you to use an example where you use high pitch or a low pitch. So you have the flexibility. It might be that you want to use both, but you have to use one example of pitch, and that has to be really clear for us to see. So it might be that you go, actually, I don't think this extract is appropriate for a low pitch. So I'm going to ignore it. I'm just going to use a high pitch. I'm going to use high pitch when Leah says, it's just me. So I've got that high pitch in there. Or if you want to use both, that's fine. Or if you just want to use a low pitch, that's fine. And then finally, your vocal skills should be used to demonstrate the character's feelings, personality, reaction to the circumstance, and or motivation. Now, that is an assessment thing. So when an examiner watches you doing your component 3 performance, they are going to be looking at how well you demonstrate the feelings, the personality, the situation, the motivation of your character. So you have to make sure that if you're using a high pitch, that it's relevant. So if you're trying to show Leah's fear, it might be that you want to use a high pitch and that's why you're using it. Okay? So that is the task that I'm going to set you. It should take you about 10 minutes because I want you to experiment with it. I want you to have a go at going through it a couple of times before you decide on the final way that you are going to record your monologue. And again, if you want to, you can practice this through with a friend or a family member, or again, if you would like to do it by yourself, then you're most welcome to do it in that way as well. But I would like that recording to be uploaded to Microsoft Teams. So with the resources sent for today's lesson, you will have been sent a due date. You will have been explained how your teacher wants you to submit this work. And again, I imagine that's through Microsoft Teams. What needs to be uploaded? I only need to have uploaded the sound file, okay? The sound file with the final version of that short extract from the monologue. Now, if you struggle with doing this, because Microsoft Teams can be a little bit temperamental with this, it might be that you record your sound file, you upload it to your school Microsoft OneDrive, and you just copy and paste the link into the Teams assignment. If that doesn't work, email it to us, okay? If that doesn't work, send it to your teacher in a message on Microsoft Teams. If that doesn't work, email your teacher and explain that you're having that you're struggling uploading it, and we will enlist, I would imagine, Mr. Cable's help to help us upload these appropriately. So that is where we are. If you have any questions, contact your teacher, but I hope that that's been really clear. Okay, stay safe, stay well. Thank you very much for listening. I look forward to speaking to you again very soon.